induced them to enter into measures injurious to their country, in which they would not have consented to had the true state of things been disclosed to them. In this case, he asks, isn't that clearly an impeachable offense? So the Founding Fathers understood exactly the situation that has been alleged in this case. Not necessarily that President Bush lied. It's clear he didn't give the full slate of information to the Congress that was available regarding weapons of mass destruction, collusion with, between Saddam and al-Qaeda or otherwise. And this is, as the Supreme Court has said, a virtual definitive interpretation of an impeachable offense because it was made by someone who was there at the time, participated in the convention and ratification. It's not something that's concocted after the fact.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start with a couple of observations. First, I think what Professor or Mr. Presser and Professor Rapkin said is totally wrong. Impeachment has nothing to do with personal benefit, has nothing to do with motives or good faith. That's not the issue of impeachment. The issue of impeachment is, did the President commit an abuse of power that would tend to destroy liberty or flout the structure and function of government by, in particular, by reducing or traducing the separation of powers, which is the basic protection of our liberty. And that's what we look to, and that's what the report of the House Judiciary Committee in 1974 said, and that's what we look to at any time. Secondly, let me just comment on Mr. Rapkin. If the President lied to Congress, and I think there's good evidence that he did, if the President lied to Congress in order to motivate Congress to go into war, he may have had a motive thinking that it was in the national security interest of the United States to go to war for some other reason which would not be persuasive to Congress, and therefore he lied to Congress. That would be impeachable. Maybe. Because it's not up to him to decide what phony excuse would get Congress to do what he believed in good faith was the right thing to do, because that's up to Congress to exercise its powers. Thirdly, we are in a very, very dangerous situation now in terms of our liberty. We have a president and an administration that claims the power. I don't believe the Supreme Court is going to let them get away with it, but that holds by one vote, to point their finger at any person in this room and say, you're an enemy combatant because I say so. And because I say so, we're going to throw you in jail forever with no hearing, no due process, no anything until the war on terror is over 6 or 7 generations from now when some president declares it over. No executive in an English-speaking country since Magna Carta has claimed such a power. And so far they're getting away with it. It is the foundation for a future tyranny. And finally, equally, the way they have tied us in knots, the administration, in effect, says we can, they don't put it in these terms, but they've asserted the power to kidnap someone off the streets, send him to another country to be tortured, or torture them himself, or do any other illegal thing. And when you say, well, that's a crime, prosecute it, they don't prosecute. And when you bring a lawsuit, they say, wait, you can't bring a lawsuit, case must be dismissed because it violates the state secret doctrine. So there's no way, there's no remedy to any misconduct by the executive branch of government because they won't prosecute at law. They claim executive privilege, they won't tell Congress about it. And anybody brings a lawsuit, they claim state secrets, so you can't even get into court. So there's no remedy to any abuse of power or any action whatsoever by the executive. We've got to figure out a way around all this. Now, I have been quoted in the past as saying that I did not think impeachment was a practical remedy, though God knows it's deserving. My first question to Mr. Fine, because I heard in your testimony, I believe, you said that in the impeachment inquiry, executive privilege does not apply. I think
well, that's correct, and Liz was right there.
All right. I think you said executive privilege does not apply. Now, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, is that Congress has taken that position, but the executive branch has never agreed to it. And if, in fact, the administration has gone so far beyond the pale, beyond any previous interpretation of executive privilege, as to say to Karl Rove and other people, don't show up, just ignore subpoenas, and to the U.S. attorney, never mind the mandatory language of the statute, don't enforce the contempt citation. How would we, were there to be an impeachment inquiry, effectuate executive privilege against the same sort of conduct?
Simple. You do what was done in the Nixon inquiry. You vote an article of impeachment saying it's an impeachable offense to refuse to comply with a request for information.
So another